Once you've added dates to a jurisdiction, you can customize the date schedule by clicking this View option. And as you can see, the list of dates for this jurisdiction just got a whole lot bigger. You probably don't want every date in the date list showing up automatically for every new trademark. So by selecting some options here, you can determine when a date should appear depending on the status or the filing basis of the trademark. You can automatically add the date to a trademark record for a specific filing basis, or a specific status, or you can choose none, or all. Every trademark has an application date, so in this case, we'll tell the system to automatically add the application date for every status and every filing basis. So now when we create a new trademark record, as soon as we select the jurisdiction and the filing basis, the application date appears on the record. When you select a jurisdiction or a filing basis, the change doesn't usually take place until you click into another field. Now let's take a different date, like first use commerce. In jurisdiction USA, we don't need this date on a trademark record if the filing basis is intent to use. But we do want it to show up if the filing basis is use. So for this date, we'll tell the system to automatically add the date if the filing basis is set to use. And the same logic applies for the date named first use interstate. So on our new trademark record, if we select intent to use, we get the application date, but we don't get first use commerce or first use interstate. But if we change the filing basis to use, now they show up. Other dates are more likely to depend on the status. If a trademark is pending, then we don't need the registration date in our records because we don't have one yet and the trademark may never be registered. So for the registration date, we'll tell the system to automatically add it only if the status is set to registered. And the same goes for the maintenance and renewal dates. If the mark's not registered, we don't need them, but if it is registered, we definitely want them. So if we go to our trademark record and set the status to pending, nothing really happens. The application date was already there. But if we change the status to registered, now the maintenance and renewal dates are added automatically. If you don't set either one of these options, then you have to add the date manually. For example, here on the publication date, it's not set to be added for any particular filing basis or status. So on a trademark record, to add the publication date, we click this button. When this form opens up, it shows all the dates that are available, either because they haven't already been added to the trademark or because they can recur. For example, office action can occur more than once, so even after this date has been added, we could add it again. To add a date manually, type the date value in this field, or select it from the drop-down calendar, check whether or not it's been completed, and then click this button. When you add a date manually, it will usually show up at the bottom of the list. You can move dates up or down by clicking this option, and then using the arrow buttons to move the date, or you can also click this hyperlink to sort the dates by the date value. By default, any blank dates go to the top of the list. If you'd rather have the blank dates go to the bottom of the list, then go to Preferences, choose the Settings tab, and select this option. Now when you click this hyperlink, the blank dates appear last. Another option is to sort the date list by the date value, but in reverse order. To do that, select this option first, and then click the hyperlink. If you change your mind, deselect this option and click the hyperlink again. If you check this box, you're telling Riva Trademark you want to calculate this date against another date. Enter the date interval that you want, and then select the date that will be used as the basis for the calculation. For example, here we're telling the system that in jurisdiction USA, the renewal date should occur 10 years after the registration. And we've also set some maintenance dates to occur at 5 and 6 years after the registration date. Riva Trademark can calculate dates 3 levels deep. In other words, a date can produce a calculated date, and that calculated date can produce another calculated date. So here we've set the renewal date to be calculated at 10 years after the registration, and we've set a renewal reminder to be calculated at 6 months before the renewal date. So if we go to a trademark record and update the registration date, the related dates will also be updated. To edit a date, click the date name hyperlink. You can type the date or select it from the drop-down calendar. And if we check this box, we're telling the system to mark this date as completed. If we check this box, we're also telling the system to recalculate any dates that are related to this one. Another option you can choose here is to lock the date. If you lock the date, you're telling the system that you don't want to recalculate this date no matter what happens with the other dates. When dates are added to this list, the ones you've set up to be calculated are shaded in yellow. If you set up a date in a template that's related to another date, you can also check this option, which tells the system to always add this date if the related date already exists. For example, we have a date for responding to an office action, and we've set it to calculate at 6 months after the office action date. We don't want to add this date automatically for any particular filing basis or status, but we definitely do want to add it if there's been an office action. So if we don't set this option, we could have a problem. If we go to a trademark and add an office action with a date, it shows up in the trademark record. But the response to office action date didn't come in, and if we're not paying attention, we could forget about it. So on the date template, we'll check this option. This tells the system that whenever there's an office action added, we want to automatically add the response date. So back on our trademark record, if we add the office action, the response date shows up automatically. To set which days can recur, check this option. And if a date can recur, check this box. You can also set a date to recur at regular intervals. Here's how setting these intervals would work on an actual trademark. So now it's 10 years later and our trademark has been renewed. When we open up the renewal date to check it as being completed, we have the option to update any related dates and add the next occurrence. So if we leave this option selected and update the date, then the new renewal date and the new reminder date are added to our list. In some jurisdictions, the intervals between dates don't occur at exact intervals such as 6 months or 10 years. In Germany, for example, the renewal date occurs 10 years after the application is filed, but the date is extended to the end of the month. By selecting an adjustment here, you can extend the calculated date to the end of the month, or subtract a day as they do in Ireland, or make any of the other adjustments you see listed here. So here's how the adjustment works on a trademark. As you can see, while the application occurred near the middle of the month, the renewal date, 10 years later, was extended to the end of the month. And so were the related dates. For some trademark dates, you may not know and don't have to know the exact date. In that case, open the date and use these options. If you select no day, you end up with a month and a year. And if you select no month, you just get the year. If you've set up the date template for a jurisdiction and later you want to set up a template for another jurisdiction where the dates are similar, you don't have to go through all the same steps again. Suppose we want to set up a date template for Austria and we happen to know the dates are almost exactly the same as they are in Germany. Instead of recreating every date one at a time, we can simply choose Austria as our jurisdiction, double-click the jurisdiction box, find Germany in the pop-up form, and then click this link. The date template for Germany is copied to the date template for Austria. Now we can just change any of the dates that aren't exactly the same. If you do use this function, be sure to check your date-specific emails to see if any of the text in those needs to be changed as well.